Hi everyone. I'm going on live today with Armando, and we're going to be talking about his coaching niche relationships. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can add him in here. Ah, hi.
Hey there.
Can, can you hear me okay?
I had a whole system on my computer and I guess it didn't work. And I don't know how it looks or sounds.
No, you look and sound great. It's really, really clear. Um, can you hear me okay though? I don't know why
I
now
do.
my is being weird. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I do hear you.
Oh, it just buffered. I'm not sure what happened. Armando? It's being weird. Can you hear me okay?
I do hear you.
Oh,
I think I'm back here. Sorry.
hey, I can hear you now. I paused on my end for a second.
No worries. No worries. We're here.
I hear you great and see you clearly. Um, how is my audio?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Please, at any point, if you can't hear me or it gets muffled or choppy, please let me know because I can't hear it on my end until after I post the video.
No,
So,
no problem.
but how are you? Wow, I haven't seen you like face to face like this in so long. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing amazing. And yes, I was thinking that it's been like 5 months since we met in person,
Yeah,
you and your dog, and it's time flies. It's already July, and I think we met around January or
yeah.
February, and it was yeah.
I forgot I brought Karaya. That's so funny. Oh goodness, I don't remember how she was, but I'm hoping she was okay. She's very, but it's really good to see you, and I hope you're doing well. I saw that you were on a trip recently, so I hope that went well. I'd love to hear more about it at some point. But let's jump into it. I know we don't have a lot of time. Sorry about that. Took a while to get started, but so just gonna introduce you. So here I'm talking with Armando today, and we met through our coaching community. And his coaching niche is relationships, and I know you recently switched your niche. So can you tell us just a little bit about how you got into coaching, what brought you to the specific niche, and the transition to the clients that you're specializing in now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I think I've been working on myself, and being conscious about transformations and becoming a better person since I was a teenager. I grew up in a family with problems. There was some alcoholism in my diet. My dad was an alcoholic. To put it more clear and bluntly. And growing up, I grew up with traumas. I think I check all the boxes between, emotional trauma, physical, and even sexual. So, now I can talk about it, but like 18 years ago when I started my journey, I also check all the boxes. I was on my way to be that beautiful citizen that grows up, go to school, gets a career, finds the right person, gets married, bought the house, bought the car, about to have kids, and I was feeling so empty back then. So I was like, I mean, I grew up Catholic, but I started moving away from religion around 16, 17 years old, And I had a lot of questions. And I was like, why am I feeling this way if supposedly, this has to bring you joy and happiness and you should be, on top of the world. So I started my journey, and my journey began by searching all the religions in the world. And I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, all of them are based in one simple and basic principle, which is love.
Mm,
So my definition of love is started to change at that time. Um, you know, Reading books, listening to people, a lot of AM radio, because back then, 18 years ago, it wasn't like it is right now, like it is mainstream. Um, I think like 3 or 5 years ago, I heard that spirituality was going to become more prevalent in society, and more people were going to awake. And I think I started my journey a little before that, right? Those 18 years, obviously, I was getting more conscious about myself. But back then, I was looking outside of me,
mm,
not within, right? So it wasn't until I came to LA like 6 years ago that brought me the opportunity to be with myself, by myself. At that point, I was already like married for like 15 years. So it was my first time being by
mm,
myself. And when I did the switch, when I started to look within, that's when the magic happens. Pretty much, I started um, practicing affirmations every morning. Um, I saw that everything that I was manifesting or creating in my mind was happening.
mm,
So that gave me more fuel to go more deep and deep within. And that brought me last year to finally have a 9 month vacation. And in that time frame, I started the school, the J Shetty Certification School. And when I was in school, during the process, I think um, I wanted to help people that were in my same situation. And to get to where I am right now, there's been a lot of transformation in my life. I always say that probably I wouldn't be my friend, the person I was 18 years ago. I will probably not be friends with that person, because we're not aligned in thoughts and in actions and words, right? Back then, I was still living with a lot of limitations, a lot of trauma. And during the process, I always say that I went through this 5 phases, right? The first one, and it doesn't have to go in order, but I think overall, all of them took me to where I am right now, which is the most fulfilling and content life that I ever had. So I started with a lot of healing. I started healing all the traumas, all the pain, all the stuff that I was carrying since I was a boy, 8-year-old boy. I guess that's when everything started to shift.
mm,
Then there was a lot of process of accepting, what had happened to me, accepting, people that hurt me, accepting everything, but most importantly, accepting
mm,
myself. Accepting at that point, during the process, I started to learn about all my light, but also all my darkness, right? So when I finally accepted myself for who I am, and knowing that I have the power to change and to choose which side do I want to feed more, right? So accepting was a big step, and then it was
mm,
forgiving, and most importantly, forgiving myself for all the time that I doubted, that I suffered, that all the negative stuff that was happening in my life. I pretty much accepted and forgave myself for that. And then it came the gratitude, the gratitude that was a big change. That was a game changer. Um, that allowed me to manifest more quickly, or I don't know. I don't know if more quickly, but it was more visual, I guess. And I started to doing that. It led me to self love, right? And finally, the final step that I'm in right now is just knowing that I have it on me, that everything emanates from me, and I have the knowledge, I have the experiences to manifest anything that I want in my life. Um, Job, the relationship with my wife, my kid, friends, coaches, all of them. So that was like a long answer, but pretty much when I was about to graduate, I decided to go into relationships because I have a relationship of 28 years with my wife. 21 of them are, we've been married. We have a beautiful teenage son, Dante. And the other thing was transformation. So I wanted to help people that wanted to transform their lives and also they were struggling with the relationship. And I always say that you have to start with the relationship you have with yourself in order to have a good relationship with others, right? But I was telling you that recently I switch, and I think right now I don't think I know that I'm a self-love coach at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, first, thank you so much for sharing your story and just taking us through the journey of what led you to this moment of being a coach, wanting to help people, and where that comes from. It truly does emanate from inside of us and our experiences, hurdles that we've overcome ourselves. And I really appreciate the way that you walked us through each step because it is a testament to what someone can do when they take their pain and turn it into purpose. So, like, thank you so much for sharing, and I really appreciate it. And speaking of trauma and childhood wounds and working through those, how do you think that addressing that pain can help you in your work with your clients today, especially when you talk about self-love? It does make so much sense, and it's truly aligned with your work that you're starting with clients, beginning from your path on to like self-discovery and self-love.
Yeah. I think, I mean, self-love, a recent term that I've been hearing more and more. But I started searching into what other people thought about self-love and what they spoke about self-love, and I found that two of my philosophers that I really admire since I was in middle school is Socrates and Aristotle. They talk about self-love in the way of knowing yourself. The more you know yourself, the more self-love you're giving to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Aristotle says that the relationship you have with yourself is going to be a long-lasting love throughout your life. In his own words, but that's what I understand. So, for me, I became Armando, the urban alchemist, because I believe that that alchemy, that transformation, that enlightenment again comes within, and by knowing myself and knowing, like I said, all my light, but also knowing all my darkness, and just feeling my feelings and knowing why do I feel why do I feel that way, why am I thinking that way, allows me to have that peace of mind. Eventually, I did the switch between, and that happened 5 years ago. I did the switch from being in survival mode to being in creative mode. I reference this to my son's video games in Minecraft. You can play the game either in I don't know if it's survival mode, but you're just in the game, and whatever happens, it happens, or you can create the worlds that you want. And I do believe that this life, at least my life, is like a video game. I'm old school, so I'm from the era of Mario Brothers 1 and 2 and 3, and after that we have a bunch, right? But when you finish the game, Mario 1, you would start the game again, but it was faster. But it didn't matter because you already know where to duck, where to jump, where the mushroom was, where the tunnel was. So I believe that I'm living my life in that way. When I switched from survival to creator, and I started to focus on that self love, that is not, going to the spa or getting a hike or all the stuff that mainstream spirituality tells us to do. Those things are tools, obviously, but self love, at least for me, is more about the more I know myself, the more I understand myself. And doing that, it allows me to not only love myself but love everybody else. And remember, love is a frequency. Love is not just a feeling. Love, it's a frequency that emanates from your source and connects you to the source. And it's just wonderful. It allows you to live a more peaceful and content life.
You touched on so many significant points just now. I want to like read them all.
Let's do
Um,
it.
I'm like trying to decide which one I want to start with first. Um, but I guess I'll start with when you mentioned a couple times knowing your light, but also knowing your darkness and how to figure out how to one discern between the two, but also combine them both and figure out how it can bring strength into your life and the positive energy that you need to serve others and really live out your purpose. And talking about healing your childhood wounds and just kind of going through like each phase and knowing how once you do that you can show up better in your life. I know this is something that I had to learn and have I feel like more so in the past 2 years it has looked completely different when I looked at the difference between self-care and
Hmm.
self-love. So we can have these morning routines, evening routines, they're really really great, and also self-care like you said, hiking and yoga and all of these things, but self-love
Yes.
is something that's very different. And just like you pour out all of this love to everyone else in your life, you do have to pour it into your own cup first. And once you're functioning from a place of self-love and healing those wounds, forgiving yourself for the limiting beliefs, the places that you didn't go that maybe you know you could but you weren't sure and you needed a little time. So all of that really does contribute to being a better helper, and I feel like that's so significant for us in the helping field. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad that you put that comparison between self-care and self-love, because a lot of people, just mix them up and just, I heard people like say, "Oh, this is my, self, I'm giving self-love to myself by going shopping." And I guess, if that works for you in a way, by all means, right? But coming back to the knowing yourself and knowing and accepting who you are, like I said, I don't think I could be friends with myself 18 years ago. The person that I was back then. My son always says that uh, people that are hurt are hurting other people. It's tough for me to say hurt people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you probably get it, and it's true. When I didn't know why I was feeling that way, and my thoughts, I even thought about, at one point, my lowest point. Just not existing, not being in this plane. And when those thoughts came to my mind, you know, I've been always really analytical. So I was like, that is like the easiest way out. But what is going to change? Nothing is going to change. It's just going to hurt a lot of people by even thinking about that, right? And I don't want to normalize that we have, thoughts like that, but indeed we have, a big percentage of our daily thoughts are negative just by default. And if you add the programming that we have, that has been put into us since we arrived to this realm, to this life, it gets complicated. It gets complicated to really understand when are you, no, how things are inside of you, right? And pretty much, when you start learning things about yourself and remembering things about your childhood, and you know connecting the dots, that's where I find the most positive thing, because in my coaching, really important to bring the stuff to the light. Whatever things that you're dealing with, you have to bring them to the light. You have to acknowledge them in order for them to be transformed. You cannot, I mean, from my experience, um, obviously, if you go to a psychologist, they will work with you in the past. As a coach, we start from where you are, and take you and be with you to where you want to go, right? But that transformation doesn't happen if you don't want it, first of all, if you're not willing to give your best and to really do the work. Because I could be the best coach in the world, but if you don't want to do the work, then it really doesn't matter. And the process is really, it's yours, you know. So it's really important for me to visit that duality that we have. All of us have masculine and feminine energy. We have good and bad, which are labels, which but energy is positive and negative. So you have to know, that you have those two, and you have to see them. And if you want to transform your life, you got to bring them to the light.
Mhm. Absolutely. And oh my gosh, you just so many important things. I wish we had more time. I would have talked about all of them. But I'll bring it back when you said that our thoughts. I think it's about 60 to 80,000 thoughts we have a, a day. I'm not sure if I had that stat right. And most of those thoughts are repetitive. So when you mention
Yep.
the negative thinking and negative self concept, especially when we're in that very um, that very dark place, like I really appreciate you bringing that up, and also mentioning that not to normalize it in a way that's minimizing it, but normalizing it in a way that actually more of us do feel this way. And those thoughts do come up more than people think, but we're just not sharing it. And, I know that I love that you brought up the analytical brain, because when my mind goes to a really dark place and a place of hopelessness and helplessness, and I do think about all of the options, that does come up as an option. And then you think about logically, well, what would this solve? I mean, it would alleviate my pain because I just wouldn't be here. But all the people that are still here, that would hurt them. And then it really brings mindfulness to you that you are important to not just one person, but multiple people. You are very important, and important enough where if you weren't here, especially if you left this earth in that way, that it would affect them. And then it brings it back to you of what are you willing to do now? And now you just went from this very dark place of hopelessness to completely flipping it to now serving a purpose and seeing like what can you do to get yourself out of the situation, make it better, what like you actually do have power, and there's plenty of actions you can take, even starting by just changing your mindset just in that switch. So I really do appreciate you bringing that up. That's very valuable, and I do want people to know that. And I come from a mental health and clinical psychology background, so this is like really really important to me. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's interesting that you have that background. I didn't know, and that makes it even better. To help others. But you know, in my journey, it has. I chose to go by myself. I always been that way. And obviously I had a lot of help. My wife is my biggest coach. She's really good. She deal with me, and and it was complicated. But even last year, uh, we started a podcast in Spanish. And before, you know before the first segment, we told ourselves things that we never said, in 20 something years that we knew each other. And that vulnerability made a huge difference. I feel that, being vulnerable is a superpower, and that's the reason I don't have any regrets, sharing my pains and the struggles, that if I compare myself to others, which please don't do it. Don't compare yourself to others, because your journey is super unique, and once you get to that point, you will understand why those things happen to you. It was for a reason, but you need to heal those things first in order for you to see them. But um, I think during the certification, that's where I just tap into that being vulnerable, and that word is always so difficult for me. But uh, even that is being vulnerable. Just trying to say it. And I think it's important to put yourself in that situation in order for me to be where I am right now, to have the life that I have, to to feel the way that I feel. I didn't have to acquire knowledge. It was the other way around. You have to erase all the clutter and all the bad information or the bad programming you have been brought with, um, in order to be free. And I always tell people that I used to have like a big multi-layer armor, like this big. Like the armor was that big, but it was like an onion. So I had, during those 18 years, I had to unpeel that onion in order to get to the core. And then the core, which is protected by the ego. The ego is pretty much your creation in order to not feel that pain again, right? So my ego was like super, super big, and it was like the best bodyguard that you can imagine. So for me, going past that ego involved help from medicinal plants to break through, that protection that even yourself cannot enter if you don't have the tools to. So I always tell people, it's beautiful when you can, discover all the stuff about yourself, but when you do it with somebody else, with some help, uh, and if it's a professional, it's even better, because most likely they already went through that kind of pain, and they can help you in a better way.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. You said that so beautifully. And I forgot to mention, I'm so glad that you brought that up, that you're bilingual, that
Yeah.
you're bilingual, and that you have a podcast, and you speak in both English and Spanish, even when you're giving messages for coaching. And I love that. I forgot to mention that. I wish we had more time. But I'm so grateful that we're gonna have a podcast episode soon. So everyone look out for that. It'll be coming out this month, where we can really dive into these experiences, being in the helping field as a Latino, as a Latina, helping our community, the way that we're presenting our community by working on ourselves, being vulnerable, seeing vulnerability as a superpower. That
Yeah.
like to my soul. Like, would you say that? Because I do truly, wholeheartedly believe that by us sharing our stories, that is one of the best ways that we can help others, because it allows others to see themselves in us, and is holding up a mirror to things that maybe they haven't shared, or things that they're still struggling with now. And they see that it is possible to get to the other side, and it's not that you're it's gonna end and that's it. You never have to deal with it again. But it's just about an ever evolving process, like you said, of peeling the onion and digging through those layers. So thank you. And something that you said earlier, I really like that you said this. My friend kind of said the same thing in our podcast episode. You mentioned life is like a video game, and
Hmm.
what she mentioned, which I feel like you were touching on the same thing, is sometimes, especially with trauma, with unresolved trauma. I come from a trauma background too. Um, when you don't resolve things in your past, it can be like you're playing on the same level over and over
Oh
again.
yeah.
And you know exactly what to do on that level, and you just keep circling and circling. And you can be on that level for years. Like on the game, you can be on that level for hours or minutes. I don't know how long people play. But as far as in life, like you can be on that level until you come to the point you're like, wow, I just want to get off this level already. I know what to do. I know exactly what will happen. Like, what is it that I need to do or need to unlock within myself to get to that next level? So thank you so much for saying that. I feel like it's such a clear metaphor for life and the process of healing and growth. So thank you for that. But we are coming to the end. I know you have to go, sadly, so sad. I want to let you go. This is very unfortunate. But is there anything else that you would like to share with everyone, or any coaching gems, or just, and feel free to say in English or in Spanish. I meant to say that in the beginning. So sorry. That's
No,
how I'm
you're
going
good.
time. But I do appreciate you and appreciate your energy. And I can't wait for our podcast. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. And I think this was like a really fast and resume.
It was a sample.
Right, just a little sample. But going back to the video game, I think we the way I see life is that we're here to learn. This is like the best school ever in the whole universe, right? We chose to be here, and obviously we the deal was to forgive everything that you learn in your past life, although it's right here inside of you and your DNA and your whole cells and everything. But in order to win in the game, you have to understand that everything is it's a blessing, right? It becomes a blessing, but before it becomes a blessing, it's a lesson to be learned. And you mentioned that sometimes when we're feeling like really low, it seems like we're in a really bad game, a really dark game that keeps going and going and going. From my experience, I know now that if I didn't learn the lesson, eventually, because life is cyclical, it will come back, and it will come back as the same lesson, probably not in the same circumstances, not involving the same people, but the lesson is there for you to learn. So if you don't learn the lesson, probably the universe, God will say, okay, let's do it in another occasion. But the next time it will be harder and harder and harder and harder. And that's why we see people on the streets. That's why we see people with mental problems. That's why we see people that are really struggling in life, and that not only they're hurting themselves, but they're hurting other people, right? So when you learn the lesson, it becomes a blessing. And once you understand that and you can see it, life is so wonderful, because it's blessing after blessing after blessing, and this is a never ending game, right? Even if you leave, even if we go away with this body, our energy is not gonna die. We're just gonna transform into something much. This is some golden nugget I want to give you today. That, listen, I went from the lowest I could be to the highest, and I don't think I'm gonna ever come down from this cloud, because I know now, and I can see clearly from the observant, as an observant, not as a victim, not as a perpetrator, but I can see the bigger picture now. And for me, it's only keep doing what I'm doing and keep sharing and spreading love to others, because that itself um, makes my life even more interesting and blessed. So, I want to leave with this thought that whatever situation you are in right now, it can be changed. And it's up to you because you're the one who is creating it. So I know there's some people that are struggling really bad and probably will say, so you're saying that I'm the one who is creating all this pain, this trauma? And I will tell you, yes. So go within and learn the lesson and just try to make this life a beautiful experience.
That's such a beautiful note to end on. We are going to end on that note. And what you said about gratitude and being grateful for your life and just honing in that power of you create your own existence. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait for our podcast. Maybe we can even do another live. It was really hard for me not to get emotional on this live, but I really do appreciate you and your energy. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, Aisha. I really enjoyed, and there's going to be more opportunities for sharing our thoughts and going back and forward on what we think about and sharing our experiences. And I think that they're going to see that in the podcast and in future lives. So I appreciate the invitation, and I'm sending you a lot of love wherever you are right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'll let you go and get back to your day, but we'll talk soon. Bye.
Alrighty, bye bye.